Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back for the Amoled removal. We're going to go ahead and try to pry off the back button and the multi-app button here. We're going to try to remove the charge port out of this thing. Make removing the Amoled a little bit safer. We don't want to damage this board down here. So what we can go ahead and do is try to loosen this up a little bit. Just using our tool to pry. You want to make sure you get underneath the sticker. There's two little basic prongs that kind of hold this down. You want to pry up along that and make sure you use something that won't damage it, so something a little bit flatter. I'm fairly experienced with using this little dental pick, so I can do it here no problem, but it can be a little tricky your first try. So make sure you use something like a Disassembly tool or something like that. So the goal is to pull this up. You want to pull up the white plastic backing with it as well. You can use a little bit of heat to help you. You don't want to put a lot on this though. You only want to put a little tiny bit. We don't want to damage the cabling or the backlight of the button as well. Let's take our time and pry this up. Try to get underneath both pieces. Once you get kind of a flap going, you can just go ahead and pull it up with your fingers. Do the same thing to the opposite button here. And just take your time. You don't want to have to buy a new charge port ribbon cable as well. Work our way down, in, and around. Go ahead and remove the charge port cable out of here. It's also got some adhesive on it, some double-sided tape, so just take your time as you pull it up. Go ahead and pull back the home button here as well. Now we're not going to be able to remove that from the underneath the display here, but give it a little bit loose. It might make it a little bit easier if you do catch it with whatever you're removing the screen with. So now the next step is to remove the Amoled out of this display, and to do so we're going to use a couple playing cards and we're going to heat up the back of the phone. Now a lot of people would say, well, why are you going to remove the display out of here? You're just going to put glue and glass back on it. But honestly, I'm going to use a mold, give myself a lot better results. We don't want glue floating around the inside of this. So we're going to take a card, we're going to slide it down the back side. But what we need to do first is go ahead and heat it up. Now we don't need to heat this up extremely hot, but it needs to be warm enough that the adhesive is loosened. So again, just using our heat gun, we're going to go around the back side. So basically, anything that's covered underneath the battery portion, see there's a black cutout, all the way around that, the Amoled is actually adhesed to the mid-frame of the phone, basically with a thin plastic sheet. It's copper colored. You'll see what I'm talking about once we get it removed. So we're just going to get it nice and warm. Then we can take a playing card and just kind of tip the edge in. I cut the tip off this one because it was already kind of bent. Just want to work it back and forth. Now this is probably the trickiest part. You do not want to go fast with this. You don't want to force it. You do not want to bend the display. These are very fragile to crack. So I cracked my first one with the glass on it. So you want to make sure you take your time and just work this card back and forth. You don't want to force it too hard. If it feels like the adhesive isn't loose anymore, just go ahead and heat it back up. Take a few seconds and then start again with the card. You can use both sides, so get underneath it from this side and work your way through as well. So now we've got it basically this side kind of working off for us. We're going to work our way up. See if we can't get this to give us a little extra stability when we're trying to push the card through here. So just taking my time. The adhesive still feels pretty loose. Just going to wiggle it back and forth. I'm not forcing it very hard. I'm just using little pressure. See, the card started to bend a little bit. I'm going to put my cards back in and underneath it. We'll go ahead and put more heat on it. Pull the home button back here so we don't damage it with too much heat. Again, not a ton of heat. We just want to get it nice and warm. We don't want to damage anything. Let's rock the card back and forth. Do kind of a sawing motion, which seems to work pretty good. You want to be careful of this ribbon cable down here. We don't want to damage it as we're removing the display. Work this card in. So you start to get a glimpse of that kind of that copper color underneath. We can take a look at where all that adhesive was at. In some parts it seems like it's got a little bit more than others. And right in here it's actually starting to rip a little bit. So I'm going to try to put my card up a little bit higher than work my way down. Now if you do rip the adhesive on the back side, it's not the end of the world. You just want to try to keep it all intact in one piece. Go ahead and apply more heat. Work our card down here again. Just doesn't want to pop through right here. You can see that the adhesive on the back has kind of split here, so it's hard to get my playing card on top of it. I'm just going to use this to kind of pull it apart. I'm being very careful not to bend it too much. This display is pretty delicate. It's so much easier to remove if it's not splitting or ripped. So this makes it much harder. So we're just going to try to cut the adhesive a little bit here. Pull it down. There we go. Try again. Work our way down this opposite side. Now the top portion up here doesn't really have adhesive holding it in, but you want to be careful of the board behind the top portion of the phone. You don't want to dig your card into any of the chips on here, and be very careful of the ribbon cable as well. See, right here is where it's being a little bit tricky, just a little bit further down. Just use my card, try to cut the adhesive here a little bit with it. Now I'm not flexing the display, I'm kind of opening it like a book. So be careful not to bend it. The adhesive here almost feels like it's stale. It just does not want to heat up and get loose. There we go. I'm going to pull it away. And there we have it. So here's the way the adhesive is lined across the back. Anywhere where this kind of copper color is where the adhesive is at on the back of the phone. So it kind of goes in a U shape almost, really thin down here at the bottom, a little bit thicker at the top. So don't stress too much if you do rip it. We'll just need to fold it back out, make sure it's nice and flat once we put everything back into the phone. We can go ahead and test the display here real quick and make sure it's still functioning. before we move on to the next process, which I would suggest doing. There's no point in wasting your time if for some reason the display got damaged in the removal. So you can take a few seconds and just hook it back up to the board and battery. See if it's going to work out for us. Now we're just going to make sure that the display still basically shows the battery charge screen. Really, we're just looking to make sure that it's not cracked. If it cracked your display or damaged it, normally it won't show a picture at all. It'll just be a black screen. So we don't have to use the power button. We're just going to hook it onto the side of the logic board here, and then we'll just go ahead and put in a charge cable and make sure that it shows us the battery charge screen. And see if that's going to function for us. Cross your fingers. There we go. So the next step of this is going to be cleaning. I'll throw that link down in the description as well. I'll go ahead and watch that one to move on to the next step of cleaning and then applying the glue to the display that we're fixing. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. Subscribe to me for future updates. You can follow me on Twitter if you'd like to as well. As always, I appreciate you watching.